difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dewbs & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
All too often, people will be sitting at home watching a press conference live, and they'll hear loads of questions being asked, and they'll be thinking, that's not my question. That's not my concern.
We don't care whose feathers we ruffle. We ask the questions that you want answering.
You're all standing on the street protesting and want to have an open discussion.
My name is Patrick Christie's. I do a show for GB News in the UK. Is it possible to talk to you quickly?
Journalism in this country has been a cosy world full of groupthink until now.
Well, this is the best view ever of Whitehall, looking out across all the tractor drivers of England who've come together to make their point.
Hello, so as you can see, I'm here in Westminster as the protest begins.
Yes, I'm very much in the thick of it.
Look, we're challenging narratives here at GB News, and that's what sets us apart.
Hello there, it's 6 o'clock. I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is Dewbs & Co. Coming up tonight.
This is a united team.
Yes, that was Keir Starmer today in PMQs, basically declaring nothing to see here. I can tell you the response to what he just said was full-on laughter. Why? Well, because Wes Streeting now faces accusations of plotting to oust him. So is this the beginning of the end for Keir Starmer? And should it be? Also, speaking of Labour, 1 million more people are now on universal credit with no requirement to work in the last year alone. What do you think to that? And a name to send shudders down your spine, Shamima Begum. A new report says that she should be repatriated, yes, you guessed it, back here. Your thoughts on that? And the BBC row continues, so we will be hearing from Donald Trump's team on that. I've got all of that and lots more keeping me company in my panel tonight. Reform UK councillor Layla Cunningham. Alongside her, I've got former Labour Minister Bill Rammell. So let's take a seat, get comfortable, shall we? But first, your 6 o'clock news headlines.
Very good evening to you. 6:05 here in the GB newsroom. Sir Keir Starmer has insisted Labour is united amid rumours of a potential challenge to his leadership. He's rejected claims that he authorised attacks on his cabinet ministers. Journalists had been briefed that senior figures, including the Health Secretary Wes Streeting, were preparing to launch leadership bids. Well, speaking at Prime Minister's questions, Sir Keir defended Wes Streeting, who earlier denied he was behind an attempted coup.
Any attack on any member of my cabinet is completely unacceptable. On the Health Secretary, Mr. Speaker, in relation to Health Secretary, he promised before the election that in the first year of a Labour government we'd deliver 2 million extra appointments. We didn't deliver 2 million, or 3 or 4. We delivered 5 million extra appointments. He's doing a great job, as is the whole of my cabinet.
However, the Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, accused the Prime Minister of losing control of his cabinet and running a government that's sliding into chaos.
He says these attacks aren't authorised. That means he's lost control of Number 10, because that's where they're coming from. But the real scandal, Mr. Speaker, the real scandal is that 2 weeks from a budget, the government has descended into civil war. Instead of fixing the mess they've made of the economy, they're all... Mr. Speaker, they're all chuntering. These are the feral MPs that Number 10 has been talking about. They're not my words. They're Number 10's words, his words.
The White House says fresh emails released by US Democrats, which appear to link Donald Trump to the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, are a fake narrative to smear the US president. One email alleges Mr. Trump spent hours with the victim. In another, addressed to his associate Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein wrote that Trump knew about the girls, referring to the US president as the dog that hasn't barked. Trump has always denied any wrongdoing in relation to Jeffrey Epstein and has previously said the allegations against him are a hoax. 7 men have appeared in court charged over group-based child sexual exploitation against 11 teenagers in Bristol. The alleged offences span a period of 3 years between 2022 and 2025, when the victims were in their mid to late teens. The 7 men are made up of 2 Syrians, 2 British men, 1 Iranian, 1 Iraqi and 1 Egyptian. The family of a woman who was stabbed in the neck in Birmingham on Friday have paid tribute to her as their special and gentle daughter. 34-year-old Katie Fox died on Monday in an unprovoked attack at a bus stop in the city centre. Jason Raphael, who's 21, appeared at Birmingham Crown Court on Wednesday, accused of her murder. And Victims Commissioner Baroness Helen Newlove has died at the age of 63 following a short illness. The Conservative peer became a campaigner and activist in the wake of the killing of her husband Gary outside their home after he'd confronted vandals in 2007. She subsequently called for the death penalty to be brought back and campaigned on behalf of victims of crime ever since. Former Conservative Prime Minister David Cameron has described Ms Newlove as wonderful, warm and brave. Those are your headlines. I'll be back with more at 7.
Hello everybody, how are you tonight? My name is Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs & Co, keeping you company till 7 o'clock. Alongside me, I've got Reform UK Councillor Leila Cunningham. Alongside her, I've got the former Labour Minister, Bill Rammell. Welcome back to both of you. You're very welcome tonight. As are each and every single one of you, ladies and gents, I ask you this every night, but what's on your mind? You can join the conversation all the usual ways. Keep it clean. gbviews@gbnews.com is my email. You can go to the website, gbnews.com/yoursay and reach us there. Or, of course, you can tweet or you can X me. So much that we need to get stuck into tonight. I hope you've got your popcorn ready for the absolute farce that has now become the Labour Party in many ways. I'll get on to that, but also another farce. All the goings on at the BBC. You will have followed all the twists and turns on that one. Well, coming up in this programme, Caroline Levitt, I like her. She is the press secretary, of course, for the Trump administration. She will be responding on behalf of Donald Trump to some of the latest twists and turns on the BBC, so worry not. I shall take you live to the White House when that happens. But for now, let's get stuck straight in. Without further ado then, shall we? We've just been hearing about it in the headlines. Very bizarre scenes. Very bizarre, Bill Rammell. Just in case you guys have not followed the story so far, you had aides of Keir Starmer essentially going to the press last night. I'll tell you the short version, as will be here all day. Aides of Keir Starmer essentially going to the media last night saying, I'm going nowhere. Next thing you know, there's allegations that Wes Streeting, he's essentially trying to oust Keir Starmer, apparently. He reckons he's got 50, or the allegation suggestion is that there's 50 front benchers where if the budget on the 26th of November gets received badly, he reckons, or someone reckons, that it can galvanise those 50 people against Keir Starmer. Well, let's just listen to Wes Streeting, what he had to say.
Most unwarranted attack on a faithful since Joe Marler was banished in the Traitors final. And I think whoever's been briefing this should spend a little less time watching Celebrity Traitors and a bit more time watching Countryfile.
Yeah, right. So he reckons nothing to see there. Simultaneously, it's also been pointed out that there's been a URL, like a website, basically, address set up along the lines of Wes Streeting for leader. What are you guys doing at your side of the fence, Bill Rammell?
Sharp intake of breath. I mean, this was utterly insane, bonkers briefing by somebody in Number 10, thinking that it would help the Prime Minister, where the complete reverse is the case. And to do it the day before Prime Minister's questions and the day before Wes Streeting, one of our most effective cabinet ministers and effective media performers, was doing the broadcast round is utterly insane. And to listen to Wes this morning actually acknowledging that someone was briefing against him from within Number 10. I've never seen anything like it. The Prime Minister needs to get a grip. I remember at the height of the so-called TBGBs, the tension between Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, and each of them would come to the Parliamentary Labour Party and say, not me, it's people around me. And Barry Sherman, a really wise old hand, stood up and said, you employ these people, stop it. And I think that's the message that needs to go out from the Prime Minister. And frankly, if he can identify who was doing this briefing, they should be sacked.
Well, is it really rocket science? Because a lot of people are suggesting it could probably be the likes of Morgan McSweeney, although, of course, they would deny that.
If it is Morgan McSweeney, then he should be sacked. I'm not convinced it is. I think it's someone more junior. But whoever it is, it's utterly reprehensible. You know, the government is struggling at the moment, being seen to struggle. It needs to get on with delivering. More than that, it needs to communicate it effectively. And that's where Wes Streeting, who is one of our most effective communicators, was rightly talking today about, you know, the fall in waiting lists, the extra appointments in the health service.
I've got questions, but I'll hold them. Leila, your thoughts?
The thing is, yeah, I mean, Bill's right. It is complete chaos, but it's not really about if Starmer survives, because the question is, even if he does, can the country survive the Labour government? And who's to replace him? They're all terrible and they don't inspire any confidence. And the fact that they're fighting over who's going to be the leader or internal politics while the country is going through what it is very, very worrying. You know, you've got broken manifesto pledges, looming income tax rises, wafer-thin majorities. I mean, how is the country going to cope?
Can I just say something as well? What I wanted to say is, what I found really interesting is a lot of people are focusing on the leaking and the briefing. What about the other side of it? That you potentially have a senior government figure rallying the troops to try and force a leadership change?
I genuinely do not believe that is the case. And
why is there a website URL being set up then?
Well, it wasn't set up by Wes Streeting or anyone around him. Because I know Wes well and I believe him. You know, and to pick up Leila's point, I don't think there is massive leadership tensions. And, you know, the fact that this was briefed is wrong and extraordinarily unhelpful, and the government needs to get on with making progress in delivering and communicating it.
The truth is, Bill, it really is a failing government. You know, you've got ministers resigning every month for doing the exact opposite of what their brief sets them out to do. I'm not going to name it. You know, you've got the I don't know, the anti-corruption minister resigning for corruption. You've got the transport minister who was a criminal, actually. And then you've got the housing minister who failed to pay stamp duty. You've got Rachel Reeves, who's raising taxes, didn't follow licensing. You've got a paedophile elected to ambassador. And every time he stands up there and he says, I stand by them. And now you've got briefing.
Who's a paedophile?
Mandelson, sorry, the friend of a paedophile.
Right.
You need to be careful with accusations like that, Leila.
What's going on? Do you think we can survive another 3 or 4 years of this incompetent government?
The key difference between this government and the last government is that when people break the ministerial code, as they will under any government, they go.
They wouldn't under a reform government, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, look at the chaos in Kent County Council.
You've lost many councillors since the May election.
You came in on an agenda in Kent, and the only pitch we've got to judge you on is local government, where you do have some power now, and you came in on a pitch to cut waste and to cut the council tax. You haven't, and you're now saying you're going to put up the council tax by 5%.
We never pledged to cut council tax.
You did. It's in the leaflets.
No, we did.
It's in your leaflets.
That was not from HQ. We pledged to cut waste. We've cut over 100 million in waste. Meanwhile, Labour's cut is going to break a major manifesto pledge, and she's going to be the only chancellor to raise income tax in decades.
The major reason there are tax challenges at the forthcoming budget is because of the Office for Budget Responsibility reclassification of productivity under the last Tory government and its analysis of the impact of Brexit. That has hit the government finances to the tune of £21 billion. You have to respond to that.
That's not true. Labour is throwing billions at welfare, at an ever-expanding public sector, and somehow you expect the people who actually work to pay for it. Right now, there are two Britons under Labour, those who work and those who don't. And the more and more is that those that work are paying for those who don't. Or even worse, we're paying for a class of consultants, quangos, that's only job is to consult, tick boxes and make our life hell. It's not sustainable, is it?
One of the key priorities that we were elected on was to tackle the desperate state of the National Health Service. We committed to 2 million extra appointments. We've actually delivered 5 million extra appointments. We've employed 2,500 more GPs. My critique of the government is it's not getting that message across of progress. And yes, there are areas that we need to improve, but genuine progress that is being made that's not being communicated effectively.
Well, if you want to talk about trying to celebrate things and not get distracted with ridiculousness, you like this next one then, because many of you were up in arms when it came to the choice as to who was going to be the independent football regulator. Well, I can tell you now, as breaking news, Sir Keir Starmer has now said, and I quote, he made an unfortunate error in confirming that he was content with the appointment of the Labour donor David Cogan as the chair of that independent football regulator. That was in a letter to his ethics advisor. What do you say to that then, Bill Rammell?
Well, I don't think he's resiling from the appointment. And this is a guy who had cross-party support that was actually appointed by the last Tory government. He was put on the shortlist for this role by the last Tory government. He was appointed as a director of Channel 4 by the last Tory government. And yes, there was an inadvertent non-declaration of a financial donation that he made.
There's a lot of inadvertent stuff occurring in this administration. I can't help but notice, Bill Rammell.
And Lisa Nandy was running for the leadership, and she did not know that he had donated because it was below the donations threshold.
Come on, they never know.
Reform, and they inadvertently forgot to make it clear that some fella that they've just appointed into some independent role had accidentally bunged him a few quid. You'd be up in arms.
Ignorance is never an excuse. What Rachel Reeves didn't know that she had to pay the licence. Angela Rayner didn't know that she had to pay stamp duty. Lisa Nandy didn't know. I mean, seriously, if they're that incompetent, then they really shouldn't be running the country.
And what about Nigel's house?
We're not running the country. We're not running. What's wrong with that? Are you accusing him of something?
Yeah, I think there are serious questions about
what are you accusing him of?
I think there are serious questions about who purchased that house.
Who? Yes, he said it's his girlfriend or his partner. What? Are you accusing him of something else?
I think he's got questions to answer.
What questions are those?
The questions that have been put to him by the media and journalists.
What you say? The question
about the purchase of that house within his constituency.
What questions exactly are you referring to?
I just told you what the questions are.
No, you haven't.
And he needs to respond to them.
I told you who owns the house.
He needs to respond to them.
What are the questions apart from who owns the house?
There's been a series of questions put to him that I don't think he's effectively
What are they? You are accusing him.
Hold on a minute, because you can't have been under a rock. You must know what the questions are. I know what the questions are. My viewers will know what the questions are. The questions are, there is question marks over the fact who paid for this property, because on one hand, you've got Nigel Farage suggesting that this was previously, or he's previously suggested apparently that this was his property. You've then got question marks asked because then it was suggested it was his partner's property. The question mark was then, well, who funded this property? Because if it was someone like Nigel Farage who already owns existing properties, then there is an additional stamp duty that you have to pay on the way in. That's what people are trying to see clarity on.
Well, it's who owns the house. That's how stamp duty is paid. It's whose name is on the land registry, and it's his partner's name. That's it. If you're accusing him of something else, then spit it out. He clearly stated what it was. And when you're in a couple, when I bought my house with my husband, he said he bought it. We both. I mean, it's just a way of matter of speaking. If you're accusing him of something else, Bill, please let us know. And we're not running the country, by the way. You are.
Yeah, you're aspiring to run the country,
he's done nothing wrong.
You need to be held to the highest standards. And
100%,
I actually think it would be
trust me, we are.
I think it would be in Nigel's own self-interest to be very clear and transparent about the purchase of that property.
He was very clear and transparent. I don't know what else you want.
I think as far as I've seen so far, Nigel Farage has suggested that there's nothing to hear and that there's no wrongdoing that has occurred. Anyway, look, I do want to take you at some point over to the White House because I do want to get you the very latest line in response to the absolute carnage at the BBC. So I shall take you there when that happens, but that is not going to be yet, ladies and gents, because we need to discuss a lot more stuff. Shamima Begum, should she be repatriated to this country? I'll see you in a minute.
What's next? Oops.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dewbs, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here
It's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power?
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics.
We'll see where this ruling takes us.
These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello everybody, how are you tonight? Welcome back. My name's Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs & Co keeping you company till 7 o'clock tonight. Peter says Bill knows, Michelle, but he just doesn't want to say it. He says Bill knows that this is a catastrophic government, but you just don't want to say it. Is he right?
No, I don't think it's a catastrophic government. It's facing challenges, and it needs to make. It has made progress, and it needs to make further progress. But the biggest criticism I would make of this government is inadequate, inept, and ineffective communications, and it needs to put that right.
Maggie says, I feel that Keir Starmer is a hypocrite. He attacks Nigel Farage on a personal basis at every given opportunity, yet complains when members of his cabinet come under fire. Hey, I tell you what, Maggie, you've just prompted a thought in my brain, actually. Did you see that interview? I think it was yesterday with that NHS doctor for a different channel. We don't watch them, we watch GB News, thank you. And anyway, what he was saying he's a brown person, he's a Muslim, and he feels unsafe in this country. And Keir Starmer basically turned around and said, well, yeah, but that's because of Reform UK and other right-leaning politicians sowing racist rhetoric and all the rest of it. Did you see that? And if so, what did you think to that?
I didn't see it, but I can understand anti-Muslim hatred because when you see Muslim terrorists, when you see a government that's trying to impose Sharia law, when you see Muslim rape gangs...
The government's not trying to impose Sharia law. That's utter rubbish.
No, when they allow Sharia courts, when they're trying to impose Islamophobia laws, when they're allowing Muslim rape gangs to get away with it, obviously there is Muslim hatred. That's all they see. You can't blame them because some Muslim communities come to this country and expect the country to change for them. And when it doesn't, they're called racist. But there's nothing racist about trying to protect your values, British values and way of life. It's called patriotism. And that's something that Labour have to recognise. We are not a Muslim country, and those that come here who are Muslim have to recognise that and not try and impose their way of life on others.
And I think Reform needs to learn that taking individual crimes by individual Muslim people and then aligning that with the whole of the Muslim community is wrong, reprehensible, and it is racist.
But we don't do that. But we don't. I'm Muslim myself. No, we don't. I don't blame my father or my family for the Muslim rape gangs. That is a particular group of disgusting men.
Absolutely.
And it's got nothing to do. Absolutely. But your party looked it over, and your party's still trying to cover it up. Yes, they are. They're trying to silence them. So when you have
this government is trying to change the law to allow previous cases that had been turned down to be properly investigated, and thousands of cases are coming
Why
forward.
was it turned down, Bill? Because your councillors and your MPs and your party looked it over. That's why. And it's only now that you're under public pressure to look it over that you're opening it up
I've debated this issue with you before, Layla. Go back to the 2012, 2013, when Keir Starmer, as Director of Public Prosecutions, was one of the first people to grip this issue and say there's a real problem with grooming gangs and we need to overturn the law.
He wasn't part of the Labour Party then, and 250,000 girls were groomed and tortured under in Labour constituencies, and your councillors and your MPs looked it over, looked the other way to protect their vote.
True.
So when the public see that we have a political party that is pandering to a Muslim vote, debating whether it's a criminal offence to criticise Islam, allowing Sharia courts to flourish, and then overlooking Muslim rape gangs, and then we have a prevent system that is actually chasing so-called far-right fantasy crimes and denying
the biggest number of referrals to the prevent programme are on the far right.
Well, that is a problem because
we have had no
terrorist attacks in this country from the so-called far right. We have had it from Islamic terrorists.
What about the guy who murdered Joe Cox? What about the man that murdered Joe Cox?
Listen, I'm not overlooking that. It was a terrible thing.
You just overlooked it.
No,
you just said there's no evidence of far-right extremism. And there was a far-right extremist who murdered a Labour MP.
Relax.
Yeah, I'm not relaxing because I get very angry when you disgracefully misrepresent the picture.
Are you saying that far-right terrorism is a bigger danger to this country than Islamic terrorism? Is that what you're saying?
I think they're both a threat and a danger to this country.
Do you think they're an equal threat?
And I actually think
So you're comparing one horrific death to July 7th, the bridge. You're comparing that to one death. We have ISIS. We have so many Islamic terrorists. We have the Muslim Brotherhood that has infiltrated this country through the boat. And you are saying that Prevent should focus on far-right extremism.
No,
you have lost the plot, mate. You've lost the plot, Bill.
I'm talking about the referrals by the agencies to the Prevent programme, and the majority or the biggest number are on the far right. I actually think... Hold on.
Defunct. Prevent has no use.
You've got to stop interrupting.
I'm interrupting the pair here. I'm going to the White House. Goodbye.
Not here.
Well, there you go. I peaked a little bit too early then. The excitement in the studio, it was riling me up. That is Caroline Levitt. She is on her feet at the White House, and we'll be crossing to her in a second because I want to hear her latest response and line on behalf of Donald Trump when it comes to the BBC. And by the way, I don't know why I said bye to you. Handing over to the White House. I'm not going anywhere. We are here to pick it up off the back of it. But actually, I think she's just swapped places with somebody on the podium. So should we just continue our conversation for a moment?
Yeah. In terms of Prevent, the gaping hole in the Prevent programme is actually people, not far-rights, not Islamists, it's people who have no terrorist ideology. And Axel Ruder-Cabana was one of those, and we need to change the reform process so that it can go after people like that.
Ella? We cannot have a Prevent programme that ignores the massive threat from Islamic terrorism in this country. And we cannot have a government like yourself that completely ignores it and deprioritises it and says that far-right, so-called far-right fantasy extremism danger outweighs Islamic terrorism. That is a very dangerous threat worldwide.
How has the government, through the Prevent programme, deprioritised the threat from Islamist terrorism? Give me some practical answers of how that has happened.
Prevent is saying that the biggest threat to this country is far-right extremism. You just said it yourself.
In terms of the numbers of referrals, that is true.
Well, then, Prevent is useless, because I can tell you that the biggest threat to this country and people's safety is not from so-called far-right extremism. It is from Muslim terrorism who want to change the way of life and come here with the sole aim of committing a terrorist attack. It's definitely not far-right extremism. Since Joe Cox, which was a horrific killing, we haven't had one single incident. How many have we had from Islamic terrorism?
That's not
really,
true.
what else? What other terrorist attack have we had?
Right.
Name one.
Do you know what? don't listen to political rhetoric and ranting. Just go through the number of referrals from people of concern to the Prevent programme because of genuine concerns about their propensity to commit acts of terror. And it is an evidential fact that the biggest number of those are on the far right. Do I minimise the referrals for Islamist terrorism? Of course I do not. That needs to be tackled as well. And the third category, which isn't currently covered, is people of no ideological bent, like Axel Ruder-Cabana, who we need to grip and need to get a hold of.
Bill, the fact that there's more referrals for far right is meaningless. That completely ignores the point that Prevent is useless. When Prevent is only going on that, then Prevent has no use. We have a huge risk of Islamic terrorism in this country. And the fact that Prevent is focusing on some fantasy far right extremist risk is really endangering people. And that has to be recognised. Yes, there is a gap with Axel Ruder-Cabana, I admit that. And he should have been referred, and there is a problem when you don't have some kind of ideological terrorist, and I think terrorist intention. But I do think perhaps we need to redefine what terrorism is. For instance, the mass stabbing on the train
is another example that wouldn't have been caught by Prevent.
Should be classed as terrorism. Axel Ruder-Cabana should be classed as terrorism.
Hold on a minute, because the train stabbing, I just need to come in here. The train stabbing, that is obviously an ongoing case. We don't know that fella's motives yet, so we need to wait and see on that one. Anyway, carry on.
But mass murder...
Michelle, there's no suggestion whatsoever that there was ideological backing for what he did.
I didn't say there was or there wasn't.
Yeah.
What I said
we don't know yet. We don't know yet.
And it's a live criminal
We don't know
case,
yet.
so that's why I'm trying to be careful on that one. And also, I do need to make a few other points, actually. When it comes to MI5, their caseload, it is predominantly Islamist terrorist activity that they are across. And also, there are so-called far-right terrorists or wannabe terrorists that do, of course, get sentenced in our jails. There was a case just a few weeks ago, actually, mid-October, where 3 guys were sentenced to a combined 29 years in prison. But I always find it fascinating, and it's actually very interesting to hear you as a Muslim yourself, actually, because I hear all of this anti-Muslim hatred all the time. It's actually interesting to hear you acknowledge that many people... you know, they see the rise in Islamist attacks and all the rest of it, and that is what often makes them wary of Muslim individuals, not as a collective, but often as the individuals. It's interesting to hear
Michelle,
that.
I can't blame people for having Muslim. I can't. As a Muslim, I hate the people who we see, the Muslim rape gangs, the ones who want to commit terrorism.
So do the vast majority of Muslim people.
Sorry? You think the vast majority of Muslim people are the rape gangs?
No, condemn the rapists.
Yes. So, but when you have a government that covers it up, and then you have a government...
There is not a government that covers it up. This is a government that has sought to expose it.
No, you haven't. No, you haven't.
And bring about change. This is a government that has used the law to bring thousands of cases back to reinvestigation.
And why were they not investigated in the first place? Why were those poor girls
this government wasn't
left
in
to
power.
slaughter?
This
That's
government
why.
wasn't in power.
Yeah, both parties are complicit, in my opinion, but when you prioritise Muslims with indulging Sharia courts, indulging Islamophobia laws, overlooking rape gangs...
Hold on, I'll have to indulge you in a minute. I just do want to take a peek into the White House.
Industries. According to a CBO estimate, the Democrat shutdown could end up decreasing fourth-quarter economic growth by 2 whole percentage points. The Democrat shutdown made it extraordinarily difficult for economists, investors, and policymakers at the Federal Reserve to receive critical government data. The Democrats may have permanently damaged the federal statistical system, with October CPI and jobs reports likely never being released. And all of that economic data released will be permanently impaired, leaving our policymakers at the Fed flying blind at a critical period. It's hard to recap all of this without asking a simple question: why? Why have the Democrats put the American people through this pain for 43 days in a row? And it feels like Groundhog Day being up here again talking about this Democrat shutdown. And the answer to that question is pure partisan politics. They started this shutdown with a ridiculous demand to force taxpayer-funded health care benefits to illegal aliens who broke into our country. even after it was clear President Trump and Republicans would never force American taxpayers to pay for free health care for illegals. In fact, President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill fixed that problem. The Democrats kept dragging this reckless government shutdown on for weeks longer to boost their turnout in an election, perhaps one may guess. That's because the Democrats are totally captured by their far left-wing base, who only care about attacking President Trump, even if it means hurting innocent Americans in our country. The Democrats' weakness and their unwillingness to buck the fringe members of their party dragged this harmful shutdown on for 7 weeks and inflicted massive pain onto the American public. But let's be clear. The clean CR being voted on today in the House of Representatives that will lead to the reopening of the federal government is what President Trump and Republicans have supported from day one. Our troops, air traffic controllers, and federal employees will be back to receiving their regular paychecks. Families in need will get back to receiving their food purchasing assistance, and the people's government will soon be back open for business. President Trump looks forward to finally ending this devastating Democrat shutdown with his signature, and we hope that signing will take place later tonight. On another matter, I want to address the affordability issue that's received a great deal of media attention this past week, which is ironic because it didn't receive that much attention when Joe Biden was here and inflation was at a record high 9%, the worst inflation crisis in modern American history. And President Trump won a landslide election in part to address the affordability issues created by Joe Biden and the Democrats. And that's exactly what President Trump has done since day one of his administration. Since the first day in office and every day since, the Trump administration has taken aggressive action to fix the Biden-created cost of living issues. The notion that the same Democrats who just shut down the federal government to sabotage our economy, rob people of their paychecks, and also helped Joe Biden ratchet up inflation to 9% are now suddenly affordability champions, that notion is completely absurd. And it's something only the liberal media would have the gall to push. But the reality is that President Trump and his administration have done so much to lower prices and increase the economic prosperity of the American people. And this president and his team of amazing economic advisors are going to keep working on this issue every single day. In less than 10 short months, President Trump signed the largest middle-class tax cuts in American history, including no tax on tips, overtime, and Social Security, which will guarantee that next year Americans are going to put more money back into their pockets. The president has completely unleashed American energy dominance to help bring gasoline prices to the lowest in 5 years, and we expect them to continue to decrease. And it has also lowered energy costs overall. There is more work to do, but again, the president's deregulatory and pro-American energy agenda is absolutely going to continue to drive down prices. This formula worked in the president's first term, and we expect that it's going to work again. And this is key because we know energy costs are the #1 driver of inflation. Again, just look at what Joe Biden did to our energy industry over the past 4 years of his administration, and look at what happened to inflation as a result. Everything became more expensive. To lower prescription drug prices and healthcare costs, the president has been working around the clock on this issue. He is obsessed with negotiating these good deals on behalf of the American people to bring down pharmaceutical costs and drug costs for Americans, and he has done so on a number of fronts. You have seen him discuss that in the Oval Office several times. To fuel small businesses, lower their costs, and incentivize hiring, the Trump administration has already cut 30 unnecessary regulations for every new one on the books, which we know will save employers and small businesses across the country thousands of dollars in regulatory burdens. All of these pro-Trump policies are working, and they will continue to work. Wages are rising at the fastest pace of the start of a presidential administration in 60 years. The cost of the typical new mortgage is down by nearly $3,000 per year. There's much work to do, and this administration will continue to do it. But President Trump has already made great progress in cleaning up the economic disaster that was created by Joe Biden. With that, I will take your questions today, and in our new media seat, we have Bev Turner, who works for a new outlet, a UK outlet, but based here in Washington, D.C., GB News. Bev, thank you for being here today. Why don't you kick us off?
Thank you, Caroline. So the clock is ticking on the Friday deadline by which the BBC must retract and apologise for their malicious edit of the President in the documentary shown last year. The recently resigned Director General of the BBC yesterday described the organisation as the very best of society and blamed the enemies of the BBC for this outcome. Also yesterday, a senior government minister launched a fierce defence of the channel in the House of Commons, saying that the broadcaster remains a light on the hill for people all over the world. So, does the President feel that the network is taking the situation seriously? Does he believe that they've shown sufficient regret? Does this strain the relationship between the President and the Prime Minister? And given that the organisation is publicly funded, is the President prepared to bankrupt the BBC in his pursuit of truth and justice?
Well, thank you, Bev. There's a lot of questions in one there. I will say I know the President has a very good relationship with Prime Minister Starmer. You have been there. You've seen them in their interactions. You've questioned both leaders in your time joining us when we've gone to the United Kingdom a few different times now. However, he has always been very frank when he disagrees with leaders, even whom he has a good relationship with. And the BBC, being a fair news organization, is definitely an outlet. I think these two leaders would disagree. The President has made it very clear that this is a leftist propaganda machine that is unfortunately subsidized by British taxpayers, and he thinks that's extremely unfortunate for the great people of the United Kingdom and Great Britain. And I think that the President was deeply concerned by the editing, the purposeful and dishonest editing of his speech that was so clearly fake news, and he rightfully dubbed that term many years ago, and this is a classic example of that. We see it in the United States all the time. We see it now in the United Kingdom. As you know, the President's external legal counsel has filed a lawsuit against the BBC. We expect that to continue, and whether they apologize or not is up to them. Thanks for being here, Bev. Ouija.
Thank you, Caroline.
Sure.
I have your statement about the new Epstein emails that have been released by House Democrats. Separate from why you believe the emails were made public, can you address their substance? Did the President ever spend hours at Jeffrey Epstein's house with a victim?
These emails prove absolutely nothing other than the fact that President Trump did nothing wrong. And what President
There you go. That was us taking you live there to the White House. Donald Trump's press secretary there, Caroline Levitt. Bev Turner, our own Bev Turner, the host of The Late Show at midnight tonight. She was in that press briefing, putting the questions that you want put to that Trump administration on this occasion, of course, about the BBC. Very damning response there, Layla. It's a leftist propaganda machine, fake news and so on. Your thoughts?
I mean, I tend to agree. You know, it's state-funded indoctrination, and it's, you know, there's hundreds of channels on TV now. Why do I have to be forced to pay? And they tend to push the same stories, the same political assumptions, because actually the BBC is the media arm of the establishment. And it's why they keep going after anyone that challenges the status quo, whether it's Trump, whether it's reform. The moment someone threatens to upset the comfortable cabal between the media and the political class, suddenly that person is dangerous, populist, or, as Bill and his party like to call us, far-right, divisive and racist. Why do I have to continue paying to be indoctrinated?
Fair question, isn't it, Bill?
Well, you're not being indoctrinated, and I think we need a reality check. President Trump was found guilty of inciting insurrection on January the 6th by both the House of Representatives in the United States and the Senate. That's what they voted for.
But that's a political... It's not by...
Yeah,
are you saying that oversees a judicial system that finds him guilty? How can you say they found him guilty? He wasn't prosecuted for it. Obviously, that was a completely political persecution.
And then
the BBC doctored the speech. Are you defending what they did?
Well, hold on, right? And there were Republicans in both houses who voted against Trump on that basis as well. Now, in respect of the Panorama documentary, yes, there was a serious error that was made. The BBC has apologised for that and should apologise more so this week. But most certainly the BBC should not give licence fee payers money to compensate Donald Trump. You know, if Trump wants to bring that case to court, I think all the evidence is he would lose, because he would have to demonstrate that, one, the documentary was widely viewed within the United States when clearly it was not, and it had a meaningful impact on his reputation, which it did not. Trump has a track record of bullying media organisations in his own country, and he's trying to do it now with the BBC.
Bill,
yes, apologise for what's happened, but do not compensate Donald Trump.
The problem with the Labour Party is that you guys don't believe in accountability. Here you are again, you're defending through like meandering through facts, the fact that they actually doctored a video in a documentary and presented it as facts. You see, Bill, this isn't just about one broadcaster. It's about a system protecting itself. The BBC isn't independent anymore, is it? It's the media arm of the establishment. And the only way that that media arm, that whole establishment survives is by informing the public. But actually what they're really doing is indoctrinating the public. Don't forget we've got BBC Verify that's supposed to verify your favourite term, misinformation or disinformation. How can I trust anything it says now? It actively doctored. Imagine you went on TV and you said something and they clipped two parts of it that completely distorted what you said. How would you feel?
Right. 99,
and you had to pay for it.
Right, 99% of the BBC's coverage is impartial. Where,
oh my God.
Where it gets it wrong.
99%, is that a fact?
Layla, if we're going to have a serious conversation, can you stop ranting and interrupting me and let me make my point? 99% of the coverage is impartial. Where it gets it wrong, it needs to be held to account. And I think there are serious questions for the BBC, particularly over the BBC Arabic service. And part of the fallout from the resignation of the Director General should be a full appraisal of that particular channel, because it's clearly operated according to different editorial guidelines to the mainstream BBC. So yes, when the BBC gets it wrong, it should be held to account and explained. And my big criticism of the BBC through this process is the slowness of response, the fact that they had the Prescott dossier for 6 months and sat on it, and the whole of last week when the Telegraph was pumping out those stories, it didn't have a coherent response. That's what needs to change. But to pretend and claim that the BBC is institutionally biased and indoctrinating people, I think is a million miles from the truth.
Bill, they didn't get it wrong. They didn't get the facts wrong. Oops, you know, we didn't... They deliberately manufactured a video to show a different, completely false view of Trump. Because what I'm paying for right now is to have my worldview filtered and approved by an institution that doesn't believe in truth. Anyone who does that to a video knows that it's been doctored and spliced and looks the other way, does not believe in truth. And I don't see why I have to pay for that.
Well, I want to bring you into the conversation after the break, because you will have very strong opinions on this as well. I'll see you then. I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs & Co. with you.
Hello, everyone. Patrick Christie is here. GBNews, Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GBNews family with you on any device, and as long as you have an internet connection. Tune in to GB News, anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hello everybody, welcome back. Michelle Dewberry, Lily Cunningham and Bill Rammel alongside you. Lots of you, I mean, I could read each individual name because so many of you have got in touch saying pretty much the same question, but Kenneth, I'll hook it onto yours. Michelle, people keep referring to this BBC issue as an error. It wasn't an error, says Kenneth. It was a blatant manipulation of the truth. If you just tuned in, you wonder what's going on. Well, over at the White House a couple of moments ago now, our very own Bev Turner put a question to Donald Trump's press secretary on behalf of you, the GB News viewers, about the situation with the BBC. Donald Trump's press secretary responded and said essentially they regard the BBC as a leftist propaganda machine. This point, the use of the word, oh, it was a mistake, it was an error, that is what my viewers are picking up on a lot here. They don't regard it, or many of them don't regard this as just a simple mistake, a direct attempt to manipulate choices that have been made, not mistakes, not errors.
Well, I don't think the evidence backs that up. It's not at all clear why and how that editing took place in the way
he wasn't
that it
hypnotised into doing it.
Hold on.
It was deliberate.
It is not at all clear why and how that editing decision was taken. However, the essential thrust of the documentary that Trump attempted to incite insurrection on January the 6th in the United States, that was the verdict that a majority of House representatives and a majority of senators, including Republicans, reached as a result of his actions.
One of my other viewers picks up on a point you said, and you said, we should not pay Donald Trump a single penny. If Donald Trump has been, and it's found that he was misrepresented, manipulated, his lies were manipulated, of course he should be entitled to compensation. As anyone else would be. What have you got to do with it?
All the legal advice that I have seen since this came about is that Trump would not win a case in a Florida court, one, because he can't demonstrate that the BBC documentary... Yes, that's where the case is going to be held. One, because the BBC documentary was not widely seen, and two, because it did not have a meaningful impact on his reputation. And yes, the BBC should apologise for it, but it should not compensate where it does not need to.
It's interesting, because the BBC said it's the second most trusted news source in the USA, so the fact that not a lot of people saw it, I find hard to believe. You see, the problem is, Bill, is that every time that the BBC, deliberately edits footage, cuts context or buries a story that doesn't fit the narrative, it's shaping not just news but public perception, right? That's not journalism. That is social conditioning. That's what they're engaged in. When you do something deliberate, you are conditioning someone to believe that that's what Trump says. That is not journalism, and that's not what we should be paying for.
So Layla, do you want the BBC to pay $1 billion because that's the claim to Donald Trump? Is that what you want, our national broadcaster to do?
You know what I want? I want a national broadcaster that tells the truth.
Yeah, you're ducking the question.
I want a national... I mean, I don't know the facts of the case. I want a national I'm not going to create judgment on $1 billion case. That's not what I'm going to do. What I want, that's not my issue. My issue is we have a national broadcaster, as you keep calling it, that is lying to us. That is doctoring... So you think that doctoring that video is not lying?
All news organisations cut and paste speeches. I think the way in which this was done was wrong and should not have happened. I've seen no evidence that it was done
What
to...
should the consequence be then, Bill? Because
well, we've already seen the consequences when the two most senior people in the BBC have resigned.
Yeah, but you don't like Donald Trump, right? That much is evident. But irrespective of whether you like him or you don't like him or whatever else it is, you cannot deliberately misrepresent what someone says, especially the gravitas of suggesting that someone is deliberately inciting violence. If you do that, and it's proven in a court of law and upheld and all the rest of it, there will be consequences to that. And whoever the recipient of that is should be entitled to those payouts, whatever it is. It won't be $1 billion, let's get real. But
Well, you know, I've made the point repeatedly. Both the House and the Senate did find him guilty of inciting insurrection.
Who cares? That's a political decision. It's not a judicial one.
The documentary was wrong, and there has been an apology, and there should be a fulsome apology. But he certainly should not be compensated.
You know what? We're tired of apologies. We want change. We want accountability. We're tired of saying, sorry, we got the rape gang committee wrong. We're tired of saying, sorry, we let
$1 billion of BBC licence payers' money.
We let prisoners loose. Oops, we're sorry. We let people, terrorists and rapists come on the boats. Oops, we're sorry. We're tired of sorry. We want leadership. We want accountability.
And I'm tired, and we're tired of misrepresentation by Reform UK about what is happening in this country.
Misrepresentation. What are we misrepresenting, Bill? Spit it out.
I'll tell you what we're not tired of, everyone. That's Dewbs & Co. I could carry on for another few hours, but time is against us. So for now, thank you to my panel. Thanks to each and every one of you at home. Have a great night, and I'll see you tomorrow night.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. Now, heavy rain will move into northern areas through tonight. Will turn that much drier across southern areas, and a chilly wind will develop across the far north of Scotland as we've got a northerly wind direction here. Further south, this weather front will move into parts of northern England, parts of Scotland.